Dear DCB, a happy weekend to you. Thank you so much for preparing to share our first DC biscuits with the secondary one next Monday. I hope you will have a very fruitful session with them. Well, first of all, let's begin by throwing you a curveball. Sometime this weekend, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow morning, I'll be adding a slide to the DC biscuits deck of slides that has already been shared. Why? Well, this morning, I received a report that many secondary one students actually received an airdrop request. Well, someone was trying to airdrop over 200 photographs to everyone. And among these photographs, there are some of them which are not suitable for young people like you. So after an initial investigation, we learned that most of our secondary ones actually have the good sense to reject this airdrop request and actually reset their airdrop settings accordingly. However, I feel that it's still worth a mention by the DC board, and it relates directly to our content. Why? Because this act of mass airdrop violates point 18 and 19 of our AUP, and we are discussing the AUP this time round, and one of our objectives is to let the secondary one students know that this AUP is a document that we should be familiar with. So it's a useful example to explain why we need to really read the AUP. So on Monday, as one of you speaks, the others, right, in the same team will be observing. I hope you can actually observe how your juniors are listening. Well, recently I've been reflecting on how people are listening, right? And I'd like to share some of my thoughts with you. Generally, there are four types of listening. The first type of listening is called downloading. You download information. Basically, what is going through our minds or what's going through the minds of listeners during this type of listening is something like, I knew it, right? So to them, you may come across as being very preachy because some of the things you're sharing about cyber wellness, they already know, right? Sometimes we are like that when we listen to our teachers, right? So especially if the teachers is sharing something that you already know, in class you may find boring. That's the feeling that you may have. Other times, right, when we are listening to our parents, they are telling you that things you already know, and the feeling that you have inside is that they are nagging, right? So this happens because at that point of time we have chosen to listen using this first type of listening, which is downloading. That is when we feel that uh, a lot of things that we hear and say is just confirming things that we think we already know. And that's where the idea of a confirmation bias comes in. And it can be quite dangerous if something that we believe is actually not true, but we continue hearing reinforcement to this falsehood, we can get misled, right? So that is something to be aware of. And sometimes all the nagging, if we were to listen with some other types of listening that I'm going to describe shortly, maybe you won't feel that your parents are nagging. Okay? Now, the second type of listening is called factual listening. You are listening for facts. Right? That's when we are hearing something for the first time. We find interesting, fascinating. We don't know about it. We are learning new information. So we are gaining new information, gaining new knowledge. But at the same time, we can be a bit judgmental also when we are listening in this mode. Because sometimes just by someone sharing facts, we make certain assumptions. We actually subconsciously decide whether the person that is sharing this information is a nice person or not, depending on whether you find the things that's being shared is interesting or not. But then the things that's being shared and who the speaker is or are, they don't really need to be related in this manner. So sometimes it is quite unfair to actually do that. But it's something quite natural that a lot of us do if we are listening at this stage where we are just hearing new information and we decide this information, is it worth my time? And if the information is not worth my time, subconsciously we may be thinking, this speaker is not worth my time. So that's the first two types. Now the third type is a lot better, right? The third type of listening is empathetic listening. So what happens is we hear beyond the words and actually have a feel of the speaker, right? As we listen to the words, we are actually hearing the conviction, the passion, and the motivation, the intention, right? The intensity of the speaker. So we feel the speaker rather than the words. A lot is transmitted through the attitude of the speaker more than the words. And that, as you are sharing and practicing your presentation skills, developing yourself as a leader, as a DC leader, I hope you try to reach this level of presentation. I do know that it takes a bit of practice, but give it your best shot. Okay, because the reality is that many of our students already know that cyber wellness is important, right? Like what I said, if they are listening with type 1, the downloading listening, you may just come across as being naggy and preachy, right? So we need to go beyond that and try to get them to listen to you using this third type. So because of this, okay, you have to speak with conviction, right? And then, okay, when you're sharing about all the AUP stuff and the AI stuff that they're not familiar with, if you are not convinced about that, then they may switch to just listening with type 2, right? So there's just factual listening. Both is not ideal. So let's go for this level of listening. Okay. But among the best presenter and speaker among you, some of you may have a little bit more experience. Let's try for the fourth level. What is the fourth level, right? The fourth type of listening is I just call it generative listening. Not because generative AI is the hot topic right now, but it generates something within the listener. Okay, that's where the listener actually generate new understanding, new conviction, new ideas, new sense of self, new perspective based on your sharing. So it's not just about gaining new knowledge, but cultivating a deeper level of wisdom where they gain new insights on how they should go about approaching and thinking and working through this issue that's being discussed, and in this case about our AUP and how should we actually adapt it in our daily usage of all the devices in school, right? So it's a whole new different level, and it doesn't come to everybody naturally. It takes a bit of practice, both on the side of the speaker as well as being a good listener, right? So these are the four types of listening. And other than learning to speak to this type of listening, you and me, we are all listeners as well. So we should also reflect on how we usually listen when we receive information. I mean, in class every day, you have a teacher speaking to a whole class of students, and the words that come out from the teacher is the same for everyone. However, different students receive this information and then have very different results. Why? Right? Quite obviously because the listening process is different for every student. Different students actually listen at different level during different times based on a lot of factors such as their motivation level, their mood swing on that day, and whether the topic being discussed is something that we actually have passion for, and a lot of other factors. So we also need to reflect ourselves. Other than being DC leaders, you are student leaders. So the first and foremost, be good students. And how to be good students, we really need to learn how to listen properly as well. Okay. So to be a good listener, we have to be mindful of these types of listening and to train ourselves to listen at level 3 and level 4 more often. And once you master listening, then naturally your instinct will kick in and you will train yourself to be better speakers. So have you been listening well to what I'm sharing in this video? If so, you know what to do, like, subscribe. Okay, well, all the best. Wishing you a fantastic session on Monday. 加油